Would you like to improve your writing for your university essays? Yeah, of course you would. So stick around, I'm going to give you some tips. Hello everyone, welcome back to The Attic. My name's Mark Jago, I'm a philosopher in the UK and I'm doing a series of videos on how to improve your university essay writing. In the previous video, we started focusing in on principles of good writing, writing clearly, and I pretty much focused on one topic that I think is going to help you out the most, basically write in shorter sentences. I think that's my number one tip for improving the clarity of your essays. I think it's a great tip, but in and of itself, it's not going to be enough. You might be writing in short sentences already and still your essays aren't as clear as they could be. So in this video, I'm going to focus on my second most important tip on writing clearly. Don't try to sound too clever. Don't be too wordy. Okay, let's see what that means in practice. If you're finding these videos useful, why not subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get updates. Okay, so writing in short sentences, or mostly short sentences, that is going to help, but it's not a kind of a surefire way of having really good, clear writing. For instance, let's look at these sentences from the beginning of Wittgenstein's Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. The world is everything that is the case. The world is the totality of facts, not of things. The world is determined by the facts, and by these being all the facts. Okay, so we're doing what I'm suggesting. We're writing in really short sentences. I still haven't got a clue what's going on there. Okay, I do, because I've kind of studied Wittgenstein and I've written on it and I've done lots of secondary reading and I can kind of work out what's going on here. But, you know, first time you read this stuff, it's really not easy to see what's going on. Wittgenstein in my book, really interesting philosopher, but terrible writer. So I guess one of the points to take away here is don't write like Wittgenstein, right? But the bigger point is don't try and sound like a philosopher. Don't think in writing a philosophical essay or any kind of academic essay that the goal is to sound like a theologian, a philosopher, or whatever. Your aim is to get your ideas across as clearly as you can. Don't try and sound super clever, because chances are you won't come across as super clever. You'll come across as somebody who's trying to hide behind fancy sounding words. In general, short, simple words help convey your ideas much more clearly than really big, complex words. Okay, sometimes in philosophy, you're going to have recourse to technical terms, great big long words, hyperintentionality. That's one of the things I write a lot about. It's really hard to, get by in the field I work in without using words like that. If you have to use really long, complex words, the trick is to use them precisely, right? So if I know that I want to talk about a concept or a context that doesn't permit substitution of logically equivalent things with preserving truth value, I will use the word hyperintentional concept or hyperintentional context. If that's not what I mean, I won't use that word. Okay, so the take-home point there is don't sprinkle your essay with kind of fancy-sounding, philosophical-sounding words just for the sake of it. Use them sparingly, only when they're really needed. And when you do use them, make sure you're using them absolutely precisely. Otherwise, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it would have been better not to have used those words in the first place. Okay, so I'm not saying that that's necessarily what Wittgenstein was doing there. I kind of think that Wittgenstein wasn't that interested in being understood by anybody else. I think he'd convinced himself that, he was writing for his own sake, not anybody else's sake, which seems kind of weird to me. Anyway, you are definitely not doing that. You are writing an essay so that you can get a good mark. You want the best mark you can get. You've got to really help the marker out by making sure they can see your ideas really clearly. Okay, so another thing we can think about is, are we using the right number of words to get our idea across? In other words, how concise can we be in explaining our idea? This is something I see done badly all over the place, particularly in kind of historical stuff. If we look at early modern philosophy, sometimes these guys, they typically were always guys, they would say something and then they would say it again and then they might say it again a third time for good luck. And it's like, are you really telling me the same thing 3 times or in a different way? And it's hard to know and it just makes things really complicated. As a general rule, just say the thing you want to say once in the clearest way you can. So don't say blah, 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 blah. That is to say, or by this I mean, blah, 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 blah. Just say what you mean clearly in the first place. Okay, so let's look at an example of this. This big long paragraph here from John Locke, his essay concerning human understanding. It's a great big long paragraph and it's made up of 3, I think, sentences. So they're kind of really, really long sentences. So here we could definitely do that thing we talked about before about breaking up these long sentences into shorter sentences. However, in this passage, I don't think that's the main culprit. I think basically the culprit in this passage is waffle. It's just saying something and kind of saying it again and saying it a bit more and talking around it rather than just saying what it is you wanted to say and then moving on. So let's just pick a bit of this. Let anyone examine his own thoughts and thoroughly search into his understanding, and then let him tell me whether all the original ideas he has there are any other than of the objects of his senses or of the operations of his mind considered as objects of his reflection. And how great a mass of knowledge soever he imagines to be lodged there, he will, upon taking a strict view, see that he has not any idea in his mind, but what one of these 2 have imprinted, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so at this point, Locke's basically trying to say that, in his opinion, ideas in the mind come from one of 2 sources. Externally through your senses or originating in the mind. There's no innate ideas, basically. Could we express what Locke expresses in this paragraph in a more concise way? Well, I'm pretty sure we can, yeah. Pretty much what he's saying is this. All ideas come externally through our senses or internally from our own thoughts. If we consider enough examples, we'll see that each comes in one of these 2 ways or by some combination of them. I think that's pretty much what Locke is saying, and that's all he's saying. If we go back to his paragraph, there's no argument there, there's no kind of evidence given or anything like that. He's pretty much just saying, according to me, John Locke, ideas come about in one of these 2 ways, and if you think about it, you will come to realise that I'm right. That's a very weird way of expressing a philosophical argument, but if that is what you want to express, you could just say it like this. It's like a third of the words or whatever. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is taking these ideas and seeing how we can make your writing flow. Ideas that flow from sentence to sentence, paragraph to paragraph, and section to section. We're going to look at that in the next video. So if you've enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon if you want to get updates about the next videos. And I hope to see you back for that.